It started with a knock on the door that didn't sound like a knock at all. It was sharp, deliberate, the kind of pounding that rattles your ribs before you even open. Daniel Rivera froze in the living room. He wasn't expecting anyone. His wife Marissa appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands nervously on a dish towel. Outside, through the frosted glass, shadows shifted. Boots. Dark uniforms. A metallic glint that looked too much like a badge. When he opened the door, two men stood on the porch, one tall and broad with a shaved head, the other lean, mustached, holding a clipboard. Both wore navy jackets with a small emblem stitched above the pocket. The taller one spoke first. "U.S. Marshals, we're here to serve notice on this property," he said, holding out a silver badge. It looked official, but something about the way he flashed it felt rehearsed, like an actor hitting his mark. Daniel blinked. "Notice? What notice?" He glanced at the clipboard. It bore his address, bold letters across the top reading, "Notice of property seizure." The words swam in his head. Marissa stepped closer, voice trembling. "This has to be a mistake. We're current on our mortgage." The mustached man shook his head slowly, almost with pity. "Not according to the lien filed through your homeowners association. You've been delinquent for months. This house is under foreclosure action." For a moment, the world tilted sideways. The HOA. They'd sent fines before, warning letters about lawn length, about painting trim without approval. But foreclosure? They had just paid the mortgage that morning. Nothing in their records showed delinquency. Daniel's gut told him something was wrong, but fear wormed deeper, because the uniforms, the badges, the stern tones, they triggered instinctive compliance. He swallowed hard. "We need to call our bank," he said, already reaching for his phone. The taller man stepped forward, blocking the doorway with his broad shoulders. "Sir, if you don't comply, we'll have to take possession today." His voice carried a cold finality, rehearsed authority. Neighbors across the street had stopped trimming hedges and now stared openly, phones half raised. Humiliation flushed Daniel's face. Marissa tugged his arm. "Please," she whispered. "Don't make this worse." He dialed the bank anyway, heart thudding. After endless rings, a customer service agent confirmed what he already knew. The mortgage was current, no foreclosure filed. When he relayed this, the mustached man stiffened. "Sir, if you want to challenge this, you can take it up in court. Our orders are clear. Unless payment is made immediately, you forfeit possession." He pulled out a small handheld device like something for swiping credit cards. Marissa gasped. This isn't how it works." Something snapped in Daniel. He'd worked in logistics long enough to know procedures, chains of command. Marshals didn't collect payments on doorsteps. They didn't run debit cards like delivery drivers. But the men's presence, their steel-toed boots, the clipped language, the cold stares, kept neighbors frozen and Daniel second-guessing himself. He heard himself stammer, I need to see the court order." The taller man leaned in, jaw tight. "You have 5 minutes to comply. After that, we'll escort you and your family out." The threat hit like ice water. Escort out? Eviction in front of his children? He imagined his daughter Emily coming home from school to see her parents on the curb, their belongings dragged into the street. Rage warred with panic. He tried to focus. "Give me the docket number. I'll verify it right now," he demanded, louder this time. For the first time, the mustached man hesitated. His eyes flickered sideways at his partner. The taller one growled, "We don't have time for this." Daniel felt the thin fabric of reality stretching. Either this was real and his life was unraveling in seconds, or it was a sham designed to break him fast. He noticed details now. The badge lacked the weight of an embossed seal. The jacket patches looked machine-stitched. The handheld payment device was the same model food trucks used. His fear sharpened into suspicion. "You're not Marshals," he said flatly, his voice carrying into the yard. Murmurs rippled among the watching neighbors. The taller man's jaw flexed. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Daniel and Marissa could hear. "You want to test us? Fine. But next time, we won't be this polite." He tucked the badge back into his jacket, nodded at his partner, and the two turned as abruptly as they had arrived. The SUV parked across the street roared to life. Daniel's legs felt weak as he watched taillights vanish around the corner. Neighbors stared, whispering. Marissa clutched his arm. What just happened? Inside, Daniel locked the door 3 times and sagged against it. The paper left behind sat on the entry table. Notice of property seizure. No court seal, no judge's name, no attorney's signature. Just bold letters and a fake Marshal emblem. Marissa pressed her face into her hands. They knew our names, our address, even our HOA account number. How? The question gnawed at Daniel. He remembered the HOA treasurer, a man named Colin Price, always smug about knowing who paid on time and who didn't. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat at the dining table surrounded by mortgage statements, HOA letters, bank records. Each one confirmed they were up to date. Yet the fear lingered. If 2 men could walk up in uniforms, wave papers, and nearly convince him he was losing his house, what could they do next? His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Pay what you owe or next time it won't be a warning. His throat tightened. This wasn't just intimidation. It was a campaign. Marissa leaned over his shoulder, reading the message. Her eyes filled with tears. Daniel, this is bigger than just us. If they have our OR records, they could hit anyone on this street. He stared out the dark window, watching headlights sweep by. For the first time, he wondered if the HOA he'd trusted to maintain property values was actually feeding personal data to predators. The neighborhood wasn't safe anymore. And if he didn't act, the next knock might not end with a warning. The following morning, Daniel felt like a man walking across cracked ice. Every noise made him twitch. Every car slowing near the curb made his heart skip. He brewed coffee but couldn't taste it. His phone sat on the table, the threatening message still glowing on the screen. He had deleted it twice already, only for another one to arrive minutes later, identical except for a new deadline. Pay by Friday, no excuses. Each word was a blade pressed against his chest. Marissa urged him to call the police. You have to report this. If they're impersonating federal officers, that's a crime. But Daniel shook his head. And what do I say? That 2 men in uniforms tried to shake me down. They'll ask for video proof. They'll ask for names. And the second the police start sniffing around, these guys will vanish. He rubbed his temples, staring at the stack of HOA letters spread across the table. No, I need to know how they knew so much about us first. He called the HOA office, pretending to have a billing question. The receptionist, a chirpy woman who always sounded like she was smiling, confirmed his account was in good standing. No fines, no liens, no foreclosure. When Daniel asked about data security, who could access member payment history, her tone wavered. Mostly just the treasurer, Colin Price, sometimes the board president. Why do you ask? Daniel muttered something about suspicious emails and hung up. His suspicions hardened. Colin had been in charge of dues for years. He alone knew who had paid, who was late, who had money to squeeze. Later that day, Daniel drove past the HOA office, a squat beige building with tinted windows, tucked between a dry cleaner and a dental clinic. Parked out front was Colin's silver Lexus, license plate personalized with the word equity. It felt like a slap in the face. Colin wasn't subtle about his obsession with money. At HOA meetings, he bragged about protecting property values while proposing fines that bordered on extortion. Daniel clenched the steering wheel. If anyone was feeding scammers, Colin fit the profile. He couldn't just accuse the man outright. He needed proof. So he started small, digging through old HOA emails, bank statements, and newsletters. Patterns emerged. Families who had moved out abruptly in the past year, they had all faced sudden enforcement actions that never made sense. One family had been cited for a structural violation because of a backyard playset. Another was told their roof color violated guidelines, even though it matched the house next door. Each had been slapped with liens. Each had sold their homes under pressure. Daniel's stomach sank. What if the fake Marshals weren't the beginning, but the final stage of a long-running scheme? That night, he confided in Marissa. She listened with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, eyes darting toward the darkened windows, as if the men might return. "So you think the HOA is working with them? Feeding them names?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "It's the only thing that makes sense. Who else would know our payment history? Who else would know when families are vulnerable?" Marissa bit her lip. "Then we need allies. Someone outside this neighborhood. Someone they can't control." The next morning, Daniel reached out to an old college friend, Nina Patel, now a real estate attorney. He hadn't spoken to her in years, but when he described the fake Marshals, her tone turned grave. "Daniel, impersonating federal officers isn't just a scam. It's organized fraud. And if your HOA is funneling data to these people, that's racketeering. But you can't prove it with hunches. You need documents, board minutes, bank transfers, anything that shows money changing hands." Ah. Her words lit a fire under him. That evening, Daniel attended the monthly HOA board meeting, held in the community clubhouse. Cullen Price presided at the head table, his Lexus keys glittering beside the gavel. His grin was smug as ever. "As always, folks, we're here to keep property values strong," he announced. But Daniel noticed his eyes flickering to him more than once, like a wolf watching a rabbit too close to the trap. When the meeting adjourned, Daniel lingered, pretending to study a notice board. Then he saw it, a file folder left half buried under Colin's seat. He slipped closer when no one was looking. The tab read, "Enforcement Actions, Confidential." His pulse thundered. He couldn't take it outright. It would be obvious if it went missing. Instead, he snapped photos with his phone. Page after page listed homeowner names, addresses, due statuses, and in some cases, a bold stamp, escalate. His own name sat near the bottom, highlighted in yellow. Next to it, the unthreatened, refer to partners. Daniel nearly dropped the folder. Partners. Not the police. Not courts. Partners. He snapped one last photo and slipped the folder back into place before bolting for the exit. Back home, he and Marissa studied the photos together. Her face paled. "They're tracking people like prey. Look, see here? The Johnsons? They moved last year after they were threatened with foreclosure. And the Sotos, same thing. All marked escalate." Daniel's jaw tightened. This isn't incompetence. It's a system. They pressure people with fake liens, send in impersonators, and scare them into giving up their homes. Then what? They buy the properties cheap, flip them, and profit. Marissa's voice cracked. "Daniel, this is huge. But if they find out you took those photos..." A thud outside cut her off. Both froze. Through the blinds, Daniel spotted a dark SUV idling at the curb. The same one from before. He felt bile rise in his throat. Whoever was inside wasn't leaving this time. The engine growled low. Headlights off, just watching. Marissa whispered, "They know." Daniel's hands shook as he grabbed his phone. He texted Nina the photos with one line. "If anything happens to us, these people are responsible." Then he slid his arm around Marissa and pulled her away from the window. Outside, the SUV door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his silhouette unmistakable. The same fake Marshal from before. He lit a cigarette and leaned against the car, eyes fixed on their house. Daniel felt his skin crawl. This wasn't over. It was only escalating. Hours passed. The SUV didn't leave. Daniel and Marissa barely spoke, listening to the engine rumble like a predator's growl. Sometime after midnight, the man flicked his cigarette, climbed back inside, and drove off. Relief came in waves, but so did dread. They weren't giving up. They were circling, waiting. Daniel's phone buzzed again. A new text, this time with a photo of their daughter's school. The caption read, "Next time we don't just talk." Marissa's scream tore through the silence. Daniel knew then, this wasn't just about a house anymore. It was war. By morning, Daniel was a man split in two, the father terrified for his family's safety, and the husband burning with fury at being cornered. The photo of Emily's school haunted him. He had deleted it, but the image burned behind his eyes. Marissa barely touched breakfast, her hands trembling as she buttered toast she didn't eat. Daniel forced calm into his voice. "We're not running. If we run, we lose. We have to fight this the right way." He called Nina Patel again, his words rushing out. She listened carefully, then cut him off. "Daniel, you're describing organized mortgage fraud tied to racketeering. If these people are buying homes at auction after scaring owners into default, that's a federal crime. But you need a paper trail. Photos of lists aren't enough. We need money moving, wire transfers, shell companies, property deeds." Her tone hardened. "And whatever you do, don't confront them directly. They thrive on intimidation. Document, collect, and let me handle the legal side." Daniel wanted to believe her, but the SUV outside last night had left a scar. What if they didn't have time to build a case? What if next time meant something unthinkable? Still, Nina was right. Evidence was the only shield that mattered. So he started digging deeper. He scoured the county's online property records. A pattern emerged. Homes in his subdivision sold at suspiciously low prices, often after foreclosure actions filed by the HOA. Then, within months, those homes flipped at double the value under new LLC ownerships. He traced 3 LC, all registered to the same downtown office suite. One name appeared on every document: Colin Price. The discovery made his chest tighten. Colin wasn't just feeding information. He was orchestrating the whole machine. Fake lines led to fake Marshal visits. Families panicked, sold low or lost at auction. Colin's shell company swooped in, rescuing the properties, then flipping them for profit. It wasn't about enforcing rules or protecting property values. It was about building an empire, one family's nightmare at a time. That evening, Daniel shared his findings with Marissa. Her face was pale but resolute. "We need to bring this to Nina immediately." But before he could email the files, his internet dropped. Then his phone froze, rebooted, and wiped itself. Marissa gasped. "They hacked us." Daniel's stomach turned to stone. He raced to the drawer where he kept a portable drive, only to find it gone. He had backed everything up the night before. Someone had been inside their home. The violation was crushing. Drawers had been rifled, though nothing else was taken. Emily's stuffed animals sat oddly rearranged, as if someone had moved them deliberately to send a message. "We can reach your daughter anytime." Marissa collapsed into tears. Daniel clenched his fists. "This ends tonight," he swore. But even as he said it, the house felt less like a home and more like a cage watched by unseen eyes. He met Nina downtown the next day, handing her the few printed documents he still had. Her brows furrowed. "This is damning, Daniel, but we need clean copies, official records, not photos. We'll subpoena the rest later, but first, you need to stay safe. File a police report for the impersonation." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And when the cops shrug it off as a civil dispute? When Colin buries it in red tape? No. I'll get what we need." Nina hesitated, then handed him a small voice recorder. "Fine. If you're reckless enough to confront Colin, at least record him. But remember, he knows the system. He'll never confess outright." That night, Daniel did something he'd never imagined. He attended Colin Price's private happy hour at the country club. Colin always bragged about it at meetings, his weekly ritual with select friends. Daniel slipped in under the guise of asking a question about landscaping rules. Colin greeted him with mock warmth, glass of scotch in hand, eyes glittering. "Mr. Rivera, surprised to see you here. Everything all right at home?" The way he emphasized home sent a shiver through Daniel's spine. They spoke in circles at first, Daniel pretending ignorance, Colin oozing charm. But Daniel pressed harder. "Strange thing, Colin. Some families here keep getting foreclosure notices, but the county records never show they're late. Yet somehow, their homes sell for pennies and bounce back at double. Lucky breaks, huh?" Colin's smile thinned. "Real estate can be cruel to the careless, Daniel. Some people can't keep up. Others know how to seize opportunity." He sipped his drink slowly, eyes boring into Daniel. "Which one are you?" Daniel's pulse raced, but he kept his tone even. I'm the kind who asks questions, like why your LLC owns half the block now, or why fake Marshals showed up at my house waving phony liens. For a heartbeat, silence stretched. Then Colin chuckled, low and dangerous. Fake Marshals? Careful, Daniel. Words like that could be considered slander, unless, of course, you have proof. His grin widened. Do you? Who? Daniel's hand clenched around the recorder in his pocket. He wanted to slam it on the table, wanted to shout, but he forced himself to stay cool. Let's say I do. Let's say I've already sent it to a lawyer. How do you think the state will feel about an HOA treasurer laundering homes through shell companies? Colin leaned closer, breath reeking of whiskey. Then I'd say you and your lawyer better watch your step, because sometimes accidents happen. Fires, break-ins, children wandering off. The words were casual, but the menace behind them was razor-sharp. Daniel's skin crawled. He excused himself, pulse hammering, and bolted to his car. He played back the recorder on the way home. Colin's veiled threats weren't a confession, but they were something. Enough to prove intimidation. Enough to show intent. Nina would know how to use it. But even as the recording played, headlights filled his rearview mirror. An SUV following close, too close. Daniel turned corners, sped through yellow lights, but the SUV clung to him. His phone buzzed. Another text. This one read, "Don't dig deeper. Last warning." He floored the gas, heart in his throat, and didn't slow until he reached his driveway. The SUV rolled past, taillights glowing red in the night. Marissa ran out to meet him, eyes wide. Daniel, what happened? He pulled her close, voice shaking. We're running out of time. The morning after Colin's thinly veiled threats, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with bloodshot eyes, staring at the recorder like it was both a weapon and a curse. Marissa moved quietly around the kitchen, trying not to disturb him, but the silence was heavy. Finally, she broke it. What if we just sold the house, Daniel? What if we walked away before things get worse? Her voice cracked on the last word. He looked up, guilt flooding him. If we walk away, they win, and the next family will go through the same nightmare. I can't let that happen. Nina met him later that day in her downtown office, blinds drawn, door locked. She played back the recording 3 times, each time jotting notes. This is useful, she said finally. It shows intimidation. It shows he's aware of the fraud without directly admitting it, but it's not enough. Courts need hard evidence, paper trails, financial records. We need to connect Colin's LTS to the sales. We need to prove profiting from the foreclosures his HOA initiates. She tapped the desk. That means we need county deed transfers, bank wires, maybe a whole board minutes. Daniel rubbed his temples. They already broke into my house once. They erased my files. They're following me everywhere. If I go digging at the courthouse, they'll know. Nina's expression hardened. Then we'll get creative. I'll file preliminary discovery motions, but you need to gather what you can quietly. Keep copies outside your home. Don't trust your electronics. Use paper. Use off-site storage. And Daniel, don't ever confront them alone again. Back in the neighborhood, paranoia thickened like humidity before a storm. The same SUV prowled the streets, sometimes parked across from the school, sometimes idling near their driveway. Marissa jumped at every sound. Emily stopped sleeping in her own room, too scared of shadows at her window. Daniel's anger deepened with every tear he wiped from his daughter's cheeks. He swore silently that Colin Price would pay. At the next HOA meeting, Daniel arrived early and positioned himself near the back. Colin presided with his usual smug authority, flanked by board members who nodded like bobbleheads. The agenda ticked through landscaping rules, pool fees, roof color approvals. Then came delinquency reports. Colin cleared his throat. We currently have 3 households behind on dues. As treasurer, I recommend moving to escalate enforcement. His tone was smooth, rehearsed. But Daniel noticed something chilling. The names he read were families who had complained loudly about HOA corruption in recent months. Daniel's jaw clenched. He raised his hand. Excuse me, but according to county records, those families aren't delinquent. I checked myself. Can you provide documentation? A ripple went through the room. Colin's smile didn't falter. Mr. Rivera, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but board business is for board members. If you'd like to serve, perhaps you can run next election. Laughter scattered among the loyalists. Daniel's face burned, but inside he was already calculating. If the board minutes reflected these lies, they were evidence. After the meeting, he lingered again, pretending to study notices. This time, instead of folders, he spotted Colin's laptop bag left on the chair. He knew it was reckless, but the temptation was unbearable. When no one was watching, he slipped a thumb drive into the side port and prayed it copied quickly. The green light blinked, then stopped. He yanked it out, shoved it in his pocket, and walked out before his nerves collapsed. Back home, he booted up an old offline laptop and opened the drive. What he found turned his stomach. Spreadsheets detailing dues, flagged accounts, notes labeled Escalton, short for escalation. Attached emails between Colin and an LLC manager discussed timelines for acquisition. One line seared into Daniel's brain. Once Marshals lean on them, they usually fold in 2 weeks. He shoved his chair back, bile rising. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was documented conspiracy. Marissa leaned over his shoulder, hand covering her mouth. Daniel, this is it. This is the proof. He nodded, hands shaking as he printed copies. We take this to Nina tomorrow. But before he could speak further, headlights washed across the living room curtains. Tires crunched in the driveway. Daniel froze. A car door slammed outside. Then another. Marissa whispered, They're here. The knock was different this time. Not a pounding, but a steady rhythm. Tap pause. Tap tap out why. Daniel's blood went cold. He motioned for Marissa to take Emily upstairs. The knock repeated. Hard hammering, he picked up the recorder Nina had given him, switched it on, and opened the door just an inch. The tall fake Marshal stood there, face half hidden by the porch light's shadow. Evening, Mr. Rivera, he drawled. We heard you've been asking a lot of questions. Dangerous questions. Daniel gripped the doorframe, recorder hidden behind his back. You don't scare me, he lied, though his voice cracked slightly. The man smirked. Good. Fear makes people sloppy, but anger, that gets them hurt. He leaned closer. Walk away, Rivera. Sell your house, disappear. Or your little girl will disappear first. The words were poison, dripping slow. Daniel's stomach twisted, but he forced steel into his tone. If anything happens to my family, you'll regret ever stepping foot in this neighborhood. The man laughed, a low, cruel sound. You think you can fight us? We own this street. We own the courts. We own the cops. You're just one man. Then he stepped back into the dark, whistling as he walked to the SUV. Daniel slammed the door, chest heaving. Marissa rushed down the stairs, pale as death. Daniel, we can't stay here. They won't stop. He looked at her, then at Emily clinging to her stuffed rabbit at the landing. His heart broke, but his resolve hardened. Then we make sure they can't do this to anyone else again. That night, Daniel packed the documents, recorder, and drive into a fireproof safe and stashed it in Nina's office after hours. He refused to let the evidence stay under his roof another second. When he returned home, the SUV was gone, but the fear lingered like smoke after a fire. Marissa held his hand in bed, whispering, Promise me you'll protect us. He stared at the ceiling, sleepless. The promise weighed heavier than steel. Tomorrow, everything had to change. Tomorrow he would fight with everything he had left. Morning light cut through the blinds like blades. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, his coffee untouched, staring at the safe receipt Nina had given him the night before. The evidence was out of his house now, but that didn't erase the danger. Marissa stood in the doorway, arms crossed, voice trembling. How long do we keep living like this? Emily won't even go to school anymore. She's terrified. I'm terrified. Her voice cracked, and Daniel rose, pulling her into his arms. "Just a little longer," he whispered. "I swear we're almost there." Later that day, Nina arranged a meeting with a federal financial crimes investigator. She had quietly fed him pieces of the puzzle without revealing her client's identity. Now, with the laptop files and recordings, she was ready to show her full hand. Daniel insisted on attending, even though Nina warned him. "If you walk into this, you're putting a target on your back bigger than ever." But Daniel was past fear. He needed them to see the truth with his own eyes. The investigator, a calm man in his 40s with silver at his temples, listened in silence as Nina presented the files. When the recording played of the fake Marshal threatening Emily, his expression hardened. He finally spoke. "This isn't just HOA abuse. This is mortgage fraud, intimidation, and impersonation of federal officers. That's organized crime territory." He leaned forward. "Mr. Rivera, you realize what you've stumbled into could take down a network that's been feeding on families for years. But it means we'll need your cooperation as a witness." Daniel's pulse quickened. "You mean testify?" The investigator nodded. "Testify and go on record. But before that, we need corroboration. We can raid Colin's accounts, seize records. But we need the timing right. If word leaks, I'll bury everything." He paused, then added, "We'll need to wire you. Get them talking again. The threat you recorded is good, but it's not enough to tie Colin directly." Nina stiffened. "That's reckless. They've already broken into his house. They've already threatened his family. Sending him back into the lion's den could get him killed." The investigator met her eyes evenly. "And if we don't, hundreds more families will lose their homes to this scheme." Daniel clenched his fists, heart pounding. He thought of Marissa's tears, Emily's fear, his own sleepless nights. Then he said, voice steady, "I'll do it." The plan moved quickly. That evening, Daniel attended another special HOA meeting Colin had scheduled for board members only. Daniel wasn't invited, but that was the point. He walked in anyway, wearing a small recorder under his shirt, the same one Nina had modified for the feds. The room fell silent when he entered. Colin sat at the head of the long table, eyes narrowing. "Mr. Rivera," he drawled, "this is a closed meeting. You're not welcome here." Daniel forced calm into his voice. "I know exactly what this is, Colin. You're not running a neighborhood. You're running a racket. Escalations, fake officers, sham foreclosures. You're profiting off people's lives." Gasps rose from the few board members present. Colin's face darkened, but his smirk returned quickly. "Careful with your accusations. You wouldn't want to slander me in front of witnesses." Daniel stepped closer, lowering his tone. "I've seen the spreadsheets, the emails. I know you're working with those men who pretended to be marshals. I've got their threats on tape. And when this all goes down, it won't be my family losing everything. It'll be you." For a heartbeat, the room froze. Then Colin's mask cracked, rage flashing in his eyes. "You think you can beat me? I own this hoe. I own the county clerk. And I damn well own every property I touch. You're nothing but a name on paper waiting to be erased." It was the slip the feds needed. The words sank like hooks into the recorder on Daniel's chest. Daniel stood his ground, though his legs trembled. "We'll see who gets erased." He turned and walked out before Colin could respond, adrenaline roaring in his ears. Behind him, board members shouted, but he didn't look back. Every step felt like walking a tightrope with no net below. 2 days later, federal agents stormed the HOA office at dawn. Trucks rolled in, agents poured out, boxes of files were seized. Word spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. Residents peeked from windows as men in jackets hauled away computers and binders. Colin Price was led out in handcuffs, shouting curses, his perfect hair disheveled, his face red with rage. The SUV that had stalked Daniel's house was impounded on the spot. Daniel watched from across the street with Marissa and Emily beside him. For the first time in months, his shoulders felt light. Emily squeezed his hand. "Daddy, are the bad men gone?" He crouched down, meeting her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. They're gone. They can't hurt us anymore." Marissa wept silently, relief pouring out like a dam breaking. Neighbors gathered, some hugging Daniel, others whispering thanks. For once, The HOA meeting wasn't about pool colors or fence heights. It was about justice. But the aftermath wasn't simple. The HOA was left in shambles, finances frozen, properties tangled in legal limbo. Families worried about their mortgages, their dues, their community's future. Nina stood beside Daniel at the courthouse steps, reporters swarming. She whispered, "This isn't over. Colin will fight in court. His partners might still be out there. You're going to be dragged through testimony, maybe even threats again. But today you won." That night, Daniel sat on his porch with Marissa, the cicadas humming, Emily finally asleep upstairs without fear. He stared at the quiet street where SUVs no longer lurked. "Do you think we'll ever feel normal again?" he asked softly. Marissa leaned against him, exhaustion and hope mingling in her voice. "Maybe not normal, but safe, and safe is enough." He nodded, eyes drifting to the stars. For months, the weight of fear had crushed him, but now he could breathe. He had faced fraud, corruption, and fake enforcers dressed as marshals, and he had lived to see justice crack the shell of their empire. It wasn't a perfect victory, but it was a beginning, and as long as his family slept in peace, Daniel knew it was a fight worth every scar.